How's it going? Welcome back for another week. So I'm sitting here with Dad.
Good morning.
And today, I guess we're going to talk about why we're losing hunters and outdoorsmen in general.
Yeah, and
Where
we
they're going.
we sure are losing them, Paul. So
We are.
yeah,
Actually, numbers are slowly increasing, but relative to the population as a whole,
right.
it's going down the drain.
Yeah.
Before we go too far, why don't you tell everyone about your fantastic fishing trip you had?
Oh yeah,
Few
yeah.
days
May
ago.
May 10th, and I can't disclose any. Yeah. Well, you know,
You can't disclose any locations?
fishing and hunting is what it is, Paul. There's there's a lot of times where you don't catch a lot. You know, things are pretty quiet and
A lot of slow times before.
But if you keep after it, you have those days where you finally hit it.
That's right.
Where the fish finally bite. And I went out May 10th a couple days ago. What is it today? It's the 12th?
13th.
13th. Well, 3 days ago I went out May 10th, and I think I caught, in a matter of maybe an hour and a half, I caught 5 or 6 trout that were between 18 and 20 inches. And
That's
and I was
good.
only allowed to keep one because where I was fishing was only one over 14 inches.
Yeah.
So I kept the first one that I caught, which was a little over 18, and ended up catching some a little bigger than that were released.
How long did you fish?
I only fished like an hour and a half, and
Well,
out
that's
of
a good
that,
hour and a half.
and probably
fishing.
out of that hour and a half, most of the time was playing fish. You know, so
kidding.
my
What a pain in the butt. What a
exactly,
terrible
because they were
problem
they were all tough to bring in. I was
Yeah.
fishing where there was a current, and they were tough to bring in. You just didn't pull them in. So
And you said one was pushing 4 pounds?
probably one was close to 20 inches in fat. I'm guessing over 3. They all were probably over 2.5.
Yeah. I put some pictures up on Instagram.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to, the pictures you sent me, they're sideways, upside down.
Yeah, you know, it was.
It's hard when you're by yourself.
It was windy. It was
you're-
really windy. I'm running a boat, trying to fish, and I didn't even pull my camera. I've got a camera, and I would have loved to have had video, and I didn't. I just
You didn't take any video whatsoever?
grabbed my phone and just snapped a picture. And even then, I had some problems with the motor getting into some seaweed and letting the motor idle. It had clogged up my intakes, my water intakes.
Oh,
and
jeez.
yeah, the motor started making a funny noise, and I had to shut it off and clean out the intakes. And it was that had me a little concerned, but everything worked out. Motor's fine.
Yeah, I could have gone. I was off that day.
You were, yeah. Well, you never know. Like I say,
No, it
you could
was
have come up and
right place, right time.
Yeah, because
know.
I had fished there. The ice had been out a week and a half or so, and I'd fished there a couple times before, and I never even had a strike. But like I say, if you keep going back, and you eventually hit it when the fish are there and they're biting, and they were full of smelt. The smelt must have been running up, and
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
yeah,
every now and then.
yeah. Like I say, it's like hunting, and if you keep after it, and
You'll eventually be successful.
you'll eventually.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of, I caught fish just about every time I went out. I had some action, but I can't say.
Yeah, we went out, it was last Sunday now, which we'll have a video up probably this week.
Yeah.
I didn't get to it last week. It was nice to have a bunch of stuff to do around the house.
Yeah.
A bunch of chores to get caught up on. So probably next week. So we caught 3 fish that day.
Yeah,
Wasn't
it
anything-
was slow.
Yeah. Well, it was windy.
Yeah, 3 or 4. We may have, I let, yeah.
It was 3.
Was it 3?
Two small salmon and then, I don't know, mediocre salmon
Yeah.
that I caught. But
Yeah.
all right, well, I guess enough boat fishing. We got to get into something that's always concerned me is the lack of outdoorsmen, or the decrease in outdoorsmen
Right.
over time. We see it fishing. We talked about it when we were fishing Sunday.
Yes.
There was 2 other boats on the water.
Yeah.
Back when you were younger, or a kid.
I have a long history. I'll be 65
place
this
would have
year.
been-
So, yeah, this is 65 years of And so I have a lot of history where I fish. We've had the camp up there since I was 2 years old. And I certainly know how things were 40 years ago,
Yeah.
50 years ago, and the amount of fishermen and stuff. And boy, they are not there now, Paul. They're just not there.
And hunters too.
And hunters too.
We don't see,
Yeah,
the deer hunters
yeah.
that we used to. He would say on the lake that there was at one point 17, was it 17 campsites? 19 campsites?
I was
Around
told
then.
by,
And
yeah,
now there's
there's
zero.
zero. Yeah, and that may have a lot to do with the owners now. Irving,
Yeah.
and they may have wanted those gone,
Still, you think
Those
if there was
campsites.
if there was a need for them,
that they would allow
that
it.
there
yeah.
would be something. But you just don't see the people out and about. But
No,
so I guess some statistics here. So this is hunting specific, and it's based off fish and wildlife data that's been gathered from state license sales around the country. So in 1960, there was 14 million hunters, and those are actual numbers. That at the time, that was 7.7% of the U.S. population, and it went up until 1982. Peaked in 1982. There was 16.7 million hunters in 1982. 1982 was a good year.
yeah,
It was a great year.
yeah. You were born that year.
Yeah, it took you a second.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It did take me a second, but
yeah. But so the interesting thing was, 1960, less actual numbers, but it was 7.7% of the population. 1982 was peak as far as numbers are concerned,
right,
but it was 7.2% of the population. So you're seeing relative to the population, it had
decrease.
declined.
Yeah, yeah,
And then we move forward to 2010. So the actual number of deer hunters decreased, or the actual number of hunters decreased until 2010.
right,
That was kind of a low point. And then it's gradually gone up since 2010. But again, that's actual numbers. That's not percentage of the population as a whole. As of right now, well, I should say, since the most recent data I could find was collected in 2020, there's 15.2 million hunters in the U.S.,
right,
which accounts for 4.6% of the population. So relative to the population as a whole, the number of hunters is decreasing,
right.
which isn't good.
No,
And that stands true for anglers as well.
right,
So the sales of fishing licenses across the country, all going down.
yeah,
So the population of the country has grown about 10 times faster than the number of hunters over the course of the same period of time. So it's disheartening. So,
and what that means is our voice, our political clout is diminished.
it's getting smaller and smaller
right,
and smaller.
right.
And
We're definitely a big minority. So if
now, so the other concerning factor is when I see most people out, the majority of people I see hunting tend to be older.
yeah,
So we're looking at 50s, 60s, and up. And some of the data that found was 1/3 of all hunters in the U.S. are baby boomers.
yeah,
So those born from what, 1946 to 1964. So people born post World War II. So all those people are what, 56
yeah,
to 74
right,
in that area. That translates into what I see as far as the YouTube channel. When I see who is consuming hunting content, the majority of people are in their 50s and 60s.
right,
And so what happens when those guys are gone?
yeah,
You've got a huge gap in you've got a generational gap.
yeah,
far
and they're
as hunting
going
it-
fast.
They are.
They're going fast. People my age, a lot of them are out of hunting, and they're
So one thing one interesting thing I looked at, I was looking at states, and can you guess what state has the highest percentage of hunters? I would have never have guessed it, but
I would just guess maybe like Louisiana.
No, actually, South Dakota.
South Dakota
Was number one
okay.
for license sales.
Yeah.
For hunters, 24.2%
Yeah.
of the population hunts.
Wow.
Wyoming was
Wow.
number 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So any
I was
guess-
going to say Alaska right off the bat.
Well, Alaska was lower down the list.
But when you said you'd be surprised, I threw Alaska out of
Um,
my list. So,
Any guess where Maine would fall on that list?
oh, I'm going to guess 25. Maybe
Number 6.
number 6. Okay.
Yeah. So about 15%.
Yeah. Are you trying to embarrass me?
No.
Okay.
Who would know this off the top of their head?
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
who would?
well, obviously, I didn't have
I'm
a
sure.
heads up on
Now,
that.
I'd bet $100 you could guess the last state on that list.
California.
Oh, that was piece of cake.
California.
0.7% of the population.
Yeah. Yeah. I got one right.
As far as I'm concerned, California can
Yeah.
be chiseled off to
Yeah. Well,
let
maybe.
them float out to sea.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're from California, but
Yeah.
I doubt anyone from California
Just
watches
watching you. Yeah.
hunting and
Yeah.
fishing.
You can afford to lose them.
YouTube channel, YouTube content.
Yeah.
Why is this a problem? You know,
Well,
why?
like I say, it's a problem because I mean, your voice. I mean, if your pull, your clout, you're losing it. You don't have any.
Yeah,
So if something is decided, well, we're going to do away with hunting, and it's going on all the time in the state of Maine. They're looking to change hunting on coyote and bear hunting. You know, now they feel it's unethical for you to hunt over bait or hunt over dogs and stuff. So when these things are decided, you know, we don't have a very large voice. So that's the problem.
well, even further than that. So hunting and conservation are basically a symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely. We are the conservationists.
We are.
We are the conservationists.
However, people want to argue that.
We are.
It's undeniable.
We contribute more and care more about conservation than
financially.
Yes. Yes.
Without hunters, you have no wildlife conservation. You have no Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife.
No.
You have no money. You have no funding for it all.
No.
With that, wildlife management goes out the window.
Right.
And contrary to what some people say, wildlife does not manage itself.
No. It sure doesn't.
We are too intertwined now with wildlife, human populations and wildlife. There's so much play between both sides of things that wildlife have to be actively managed.
Right.
They're not going to manage themselves. And you'll see people say they can manage themselves. Carnivores are the natural.
No.
Predators are the natural.
No.
And no, that's not true. And
No.
they'll use coyotes, for example, which aren't even native
Right.
to the state of Maine.
Right.
So wildlife management has to be intentional.
The people, they have a very distorted view of what actually happens in nature.
Well, they're disconnected from it all.
They think that they think these animals are out there living a happy life, and you know it's actually a really brutal place.
It's a rough life.
It's a rough life, and I was just watching a show, a guy going out and checking on a YouTube channel, and he was checking moose, the radio collared moose that were dying from ticks.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a gruesome process.
And yeah, he was floating down, I think, the St. John River. He had a locator, and he was I don't know if he was an actual employee for the state or he was doing subcontracting for the state. He's got a YouTube channel anyway, and so he would pick up the signal along the St. John River and go in and find the dead moose, and it was the two that I saw on his channel, both were killed by ticks.
Yeah.
Were calves, and that has to be a miserable, slow death basically just starvation is what it is.
We saw one deer hunting a few years back.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even get out of the road.
Yeah.
He was just sitting there
Yeah. I found 3 last year,
miserable.
some snowmobiling and some when I was out turkey hunting, that all young moose that had been killed by ticks. And the state knows that there is a high percentage of the moose population is being killed by winter ticks, the young. There's no recruitment or very little recruitment in that.
And as far as wildlife, I don't want to get too much into wildlife management. As far as history is concerned, thankfully we had some historical figures that played a role in setting the stage for managing wildlife and lands. You had Teddy Roosevelt,
Yeah,
responsible for the U.S. Forest Service,
yeah.
established national parks.
And he was a big hunter. Teddy.
He was a big hunter, and he
Teddy-
realized that natural resources could be exhausted. There was a point in time, late 1800s and whatnot, where I think the general feeling amongst the public is that it was inexhaustible. Our natural
Right.
resources were,
You could just go.
and
take
it was
whatever-
him.
Yeah,
I think it was out in the Badlands or whatever.
yeah,
He saw the decimation of bison,
Yeah.
elk, and various other species
yeah,
of animals, realized that something had to be done. And like you said, he was an avid hunter.
yes, he was.
Then you had John Muir, Guilford Pinchot,
Yep,
and those guys, Aldo Leopold.
yep,
Those were kind of, I call them the three fathers. You have the father of conservation, father of forestry,
yeah,
and what was the other one? The father of the national parks.
yeah. Muir was national park.
yeah.
So John Muir. Yeah,
Gifford Pinchot was father of conservation. So why are we losing hunters? And outdoorsmen in general, why are we losing? It's
I
a
think
question I've thought about a lot.
I think a lot of it, Paul, and it's been the shift from people living in the the rural areas moving to urban areas. I think that had a lot to do with it. That the population shift.
So you get an increased disconnection
Yeah,
from
being
nature.
off the land.
You're getting stuff
From
from a grocery store.
Right. It used to be the farm boys and, the people that lived in rural America, they all hunted and trapped and stuff. And now you've got a shift into a more urban population and they're disconnected from the land. And
Yeah.
I think that would be one reason right off the top of my head. There's a number of them, other activities that kids get into. And
I thought about some big reasons currently and why people aren't doing it as much. And at its core, the values in this country have changed drastically. Societal norms
yeah,
have changed.
yeah,
And there's two underlying things that I see that probably really contribute to that. It's the decline of the typical traditional family unit
yeah,
and an increase in moral deficiency.
yeah.
We've become morally defective
Yeah.
in a major way.
The line between right and wrong has certainly been blurred, and we certainly see it in today's society. And there's a hot button issue right there.
You're right. Well,
Yeah.
what happens is people don't have guardrails in place, and you keep pushing that line further and further and further. Pretty soon, everything becomes watered down. You no longer have any idea who you are or
Right.
what you stand for, and then you're sitting there thinking, "Why am I even here? What the heck am I even doing?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, people lose their identity in
Yeah.
more ways than one.
Yeah.
We argue about it nowadays.
Yeah.
And you see the same thing with the family unit. It's going to the wayside.
Yeah.
And those traditional values that are built within a family are being lost. And really, the family unit is the cornerstone
Of society. It's exactly what it is.
And
Yeah.
I always think of, you have Abraham Maslow that created the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's basically a pyramid of how people grow and develop. And it starts at the base of the pyramid is your basic needs. So food, water, air,
Shelter.
being safe.
Right.
And before you can grow further,
Yeah.
you first have to have your basic needs met, which
Those are the vital needs that you.
which then moves into, so then, to simplify it, his second tier, general tier, would be your psychosocial needs. So being loved, communion,
Right.
relationship,
Yeah.
stuff like that. That then sets the stage for what he would term self-actualization. So achieving basically your full potential.
Right.
So what is it that you can do? What is it you can achieve? Kind of maximizing your potential. And not that I subscribe 100% to his little pyramid, but it is kind of a continuum of, you've got to have your basic needs met before you can grow further and further and further.
Yeah.
And so the family unit really helps establish in a child those basic needs, which then allows them to move on into those other levels. And it's good for the individual and it's good for society. And so you see those things kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
People are losing what they value with things in life. And so, you ask, well, how does this, tie into hunting? I guess at the end of it, if you're out hunting, you're asking, if you're honest with yourself, you ask, well, why do I hunt? Why am I out here hunting?
Right.
And I guess I thought about it, and I've thought about it a lot over the years. It's more than just fun. It's a connection to nature. It's something you don't get within four walls.
Right.
Or within a city. It's therapeutic. It brings back warm memories, especially if you've done it as a child.
Right.
Which is, we'll touch on, or at least I will, the importance of bringing a kid hunting.
Right.
And making it enjoyable so they can develop those warm memories, those fond memories that they'll carry on into adulthood. But what are some of the reasons you hunt?
Well, you hit one. I can remember as a young child. I can remember my dad going, and you have those memories, and you dream of the day that you're old enough to go with them.
Oh yeah.
And then you start going, at a real simple level, maybe ride, bird hunt, and it's something that's a child can do, and you move into the harder, like ultimately it would be to spend the day in the woods tracking a deer. I mean, that's difficult. That's a lot of work.
You're not going to start a kid doing that.
Right. You're not going to take a 5-year-old out and start tracking deer. I mean, no. There's a progression, and just like fishing, you take them out, and they're not going to sit in a boat for 10 hours and not catch a fish. But you take them out, and you fish for chub or perch or something that
keeps them busy.
They don't care
Keeps
what's on the end of the line wiggling as long
as there's something going on.
As long as there's something there, and you go for short periods of time, and but like getting back to, I just remember my dad going with the men. This was something the men did, and I just dreamed of the day that I could actually go with them. Yeah. Go to deer camp, go with the men to deer camp and
fish camp.
Yeah, and fish. Yeah. Yeah. So their passion, and he had a passion for some of that stuff, and you can, as a child, you pick up on it, and you develop that passion also.
All right, so we kind of touched on some of the value stuff, or I guess we touched on some of so lost the family unit, becoming morally deficient as a society. But then some of the more simpler things that I guess as I was thinking on why people are not engaged in this as much as they used to be. Lack of free time. Yeah. People are working more. Yeah. There's a lot more vying for our time. There's all kinds of, tech, all kinds of things that are more instant gratification than deer hunting or fishing, sitting long hours in a boat. It ends up being kind of the wrong mindset if you think that you're wasting time sitting in a boat or chasing a deer through the woods without actually catching. You can be
unsuccessful a lot of the time. Like we were just talking about with the fishing pole. I spent a lot of time in the boat to get to that one day that the fish were biting.
But there's a lot of value in those days that you don't catch
Oh, I
fish,
enjoy it for
or
sure.
you don't. Oh my word!
Yeah,
The stuff that you see, which we're up fishing, we came across an abandoned cabin.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to have a separate video up
Yeah.
on that. It just, I mean, that's interesting stuff that you come across.
Yeah.
I don't know how many, you've come across several buildings.
I have
over the
probably 7 or 8, and I'm going to try to get back in and actually document and record some of those, get some pictures. Every one of them has collapsed. The ones that, but it's so interesting because you're thinking of the stories they could tell from the time some young man was excited about building it and dreaming about, having a camp to actually hunt in, to the years that he used it, and to what happened, to the final, it's no longer usable. It's collapsed. The snow has taken it, and yeah.
Another one I thought of was access to game. Maine, we're fortunate, a lot of public access.
Yeah.
But you're seeing, I'm even concerned in Maine of hunting leases.
Yeah, it can change.
Popping up.
Because it is all private, or most of it is all private land that we access.
It is.
It's not like it's public land. It's not public land. It's private land that's open to us.
Yeah.
So we have a unique, we're very fortunate in that
We've got
regard.
millions of acres that we can hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I never take it for granted.
Yeah.
And I hope people that utilize it don't take it for granted.
No, it can change. You never know what.
Because it could be yanked out from under you pretty quick.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking of, and it was to a conversation we had fishing, our summer fishing trip in June, is, and I've run across old timers more that bring this up, but the regulations and how complicated they can be.
And they change from year to year, and they're very complicated. Yeah. If you fly fish and release all your fish, you never have to.
You basically can fish wherever you want. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people really value tangible stuff,
right?
And they feel if they're going to go out fishing, they got to come back with a fish.
Right.
They got to come back with something physical in order not to be successful, but to get value out of it.
Right.
And you see a lot of people say, "Well, frig that. I can't keep a fish.
Yeah.
I'm not. Why bother? Gas is $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
I'm going to drive 60 miles into the woods."
And you pay a pretty big camping fee if you stay for 2 or 3 days. You can spend some money with camping and day use fees.
But we talked about, and we were even at the end of it, we're like, wait, what pond are we on again? And what? It's 2 fish. Only one can exceed 12 inches.
Right.
And then the other pond was 2 fish.
Yeah, you couldn't keep one over 12 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
they had to be both under 12 inches.
Once we were going through all the regulations again, we were like, wait, which pond was... It was like, holy smokes, we can't even wrap our minds around...
No, you
got to constantly be looking at the law book. That's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I think the state should do something... It sounds like a scientist created the fishing regulations.
I think they did.
Probably did. Sounds like something a scientist would do.
Yeah.
Made sense to them, but to the general public, it's...
Yeah, not to be too hard. They probably make good scientific sense. It's just it's for the user, for the actual layperson that wants to go out and fish. It's very...
And I will say, I'll touch on this in a minute, but I think the state does an excellent job of trying to get new people engaged in hunting.
Yeah.
And I think that obviously they realize that that's the key to their future success.
Right.
Is to make sure that they have a continuous generation of outdoors men and women coming into it, or else they're out of a job.
They are.
It's all gone. So how do we fix it? Not we particularly, but as a society.
You mentioned one thing right off the bat, Paul. As a hunter and a fisherman yourself, you take your kids.
Warm
one,
memories. It was good memories.
You build those that into your children.
And I got a funny story about that. And you talk about memories, and it's all your senses: sight, smell,
hearing,
and songs for me. Like, whenever I hear Sugar Ray, I Want to Fly, that came out in 1997.
Yeah.
And I actually looked it up last night, because every time I hear that song, I think of the first buck that I shot. And I can remember I shot that buck, first day deer camp, and I drove around. I didn't have my license. I wasn't 16.
Yeah.
Dale had already shot a deer. I drove around with him, bird hunting, basically that loop on the Horse Barn Road. And while you guys were hunting, that song played. That was the first song I heard when I was in the truck after I shot that deer. That song played. Like, obviously it must have been a hit song that year. So I looked it up. I'm like, must have been 97 it was released. It was released in May of 1997.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that song, it immediately brings me back to when I shot that deer.
Confederate Railroad?
That brings me back to bird hunting. Yeah, that's one.
Brittany would,
and then
we were out bird hunting and that played, and she couldn't
that.
wait to get home and sing that song.
And
I won't mention the title of the song, but Confederate Railroad.
They're probably not even allowed to be called Confederate Railroad anymore.
No.
And then the other one is that really, as far as hunting goes, that just brings me back to deer camp is Joe Diffie, John Deere Green.
Yeah.
That would have been my second year at deer camp. That was played basically on loop on the Country Channel, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so those sounds, they bring me right back to those times.
Now I have one, Paul, and I can still picture where we were with Dad in the car bird hunting. And I would have to look up the year that the song came out, but it was the Allman Brothers Band. It was,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was Lord, I Was Born a Rambling Man.
And that's,
I would have to, I'm going to look that up when we, but I can remember as a kid, and I'm thinking I was under 10 years old, and that would be playing on the radio while we were bird hunting.
So I looked at the Joe Diffie, John Deere Green. I'm like, that brings me back. I'm like, that was my first or second year at deer camp. I know it was.
Yeah.
And my first year at deer camp was 92.
Yeah.
And so I looked it up. Joe Diffie, it was released fall of 93.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes sense. That brings me right back. So creating more memories with your kids. And it really takes a lot of sacrifice.
It does.
I'm thinking right now, I like to deer hunt. I like to deer hunt hard.
Yeah.
Like
you have very few days you can do it,
but
and you know you're sacrificing your hunt to take a child.
I was thinking the other day, I'm probably gonna have 5 or 6 years that if I want my kids to be involved in it, I'm probably gonna have 5 or 6 years where I'm not gonna have many days that I can really seriously 100% about me deer hunt. So there's going to take a period of sacrifice. But on the flip side, down the road, I'll have Bo, who can track a deer to me. I can shoot it, and then he can gut it and drag it out. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it all...
Is that how...
Yeah, I can remember... I have a visual of me pulling a canoe into Upper Pond. And then now you're lugging the canoe and on your shoulders, and I'm walking behind you. And and
you're complaining about being hungry and needing a nap.
Yeah. So things have switched from the time you were just a young fella, and I would drag the canoe, and I never carried it on I drug it, and
well, you didn't have it.
Now you're carrying the canoe for me. I carry the rods and the life vest and the paddle. And the snacks.
Yeah, you need plenty of snacks. You can bring your juice box.
Yeah.
So, obviously taking kids out. And that's where I think the state does a really good job. They've got the Youth Day Hunt, which I'm kind of have mixed feelings about because I feel like a lot of people abuse
I think it may be an excuse for...
They just grab a kid.
I better not go down that road, but I think it probably happens more than...
I see just random people, they'll... just trying to find a kid to take out hunting. And it's like, that's really not the purpose of it.
No.
The other thing that I'm a big fan of is the lifetime hunting and fishing license.
Yeah.
So you guys have bought both of our kids.
Yeah, we got one more to go.
Yep.
Bo's only 2.
And the key with that is if you buy them before they turn 6, it's $250 for the combo. After the age of 6, it's $500.
Right.
So if you do it early, you can save yourself some money. And they'll have that the rest of their life. And I think that's it. Oh, and then the other thing that I think was a good move by the state was eliminating the minimum hunting age.
Yeah.
Letting a kid go when they're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, some kids are ready younger than others. So one thing that, and I didn't mention it before, but that can keep people from getting into this stuff is an increased barrier to entry. And that really comes with commercialization of a lot of things. I think a lot of people feel they need all this expensive equipment.
Right.
From fishing gear or hunting gear. And that is so far from, I am not a gear junkie. And anyway, I don't want to have a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to use.
Right. And
I don't want to spend a bunch of money on stuff that, I mean, I still use the same wool jacket I did when I was 14. I don't know. You don't need, guns are the same way. People will buy new guns every couple years.
I could
for
tell
the latest and greatest.
Yeah, I could tell you a few stories on how interesting that is, Paul. That when I was young, and Dad would take us, my brother and myself, and we had one old hand-me-down single shot 410 between the three of us, between three people. And we would go hunting with one gun. And my father didn't buy it. It was handed down from his father to him. And so I would grab, well, what are my options? He had a pump 22. So I'd go partridge hunting.
Makes you a better hunter.
With a pump 22.
Yeah.
And Dad and Jeff would have to swap off on the shotgun.
He was cheap.
He was frugal.
He was a cheap son of a
But
gun.
this is how I was raised. And we went a lot. We went hunting every day that he had off, bird hunting. And we had one shotgun until I get old enough to buy, I bought a single shot 20 gauge when I was probably 12 or in that area. But before then, we swapped. And then the same way with fishing, Paul, we had the worst looking outfit of rods that we put together to go fishing with. And one of the great fishing trips I remember as a young man, I actually used an alder twitch with a piece of string. I did at Libby Dam and caught 6 nice brook trout early in the spring, early in May in the beaver dam. And I had no rod at the house, whatever rods we had. And we didn't have many. We're at the lake, at the camp. So I wanted to go so bad. I found some string and went and cut an alder twitch, and I caught like 6 brook trout. I thought that's one of those memories that I have that.
If you want to do something, and I say it to a lot
bad
of people,
enough.
If you want to do something bad enough, you'll figure out a way. It doesn't matter what it is in life. If you want to do it bad enough, you'll figure out a way to get it done.
Yep. And there's not many kids that would do that today that would go and cut an alder twitch, and I was successful. I couldn't believe it. I caught like 6 trout.
And that comes back to our values in society.
Yeah.
And how we've kind of gotten into this situation we're in is we haven't had my generation and the generations behind me, they've had no real problems in life.
No.
There's been no strife. There's been no struggles.
No.
When your biggest problem is, my $1,000 phone is 2 years old. I need to get a new one.
Yeah.
Woe is me, I don't have a new one.
Yeah.
That's a big...
Yeah.
You look at, like, my grandparents. My grandfather was in World War II, was shot up in World War II.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost died.
Purple Heart.
Never heard the guy talk about it.
No.
He lived a productive life.
Yeah.
He never, not that you want to keep that stuff bottled down.
Yeah.
But he didn't, I mean, and not to wreck on people on social media, but that would be their calling card nowadays.
Yeah.
I've been X.
Well,
and
I better not go there, but yeah. And their wants, they didn't have a lot of stuff.
No.
Well, my father had like I said, we shared a shotgun that he didn't buy, that he never bought a gun. My father never bought a gun.
And you lose appreciation for things in life
Yeah.
when it's just so dang easy.
Yeah,
all the time.
he hunted, he deer hunted. There again, his father passed it down to him. It was a 1936. You got the gun right in the gun case there, Model 81 Remington. When his father died, Dad was 9 years old, so those guns were left, basically to him. A pump 22, single shot 410, and the 30 Remington Model 81. And that's all he ever used. And he hunted, and that's all he ever used. Never had want for another gun.
No. So you don't need expensive.
No.
It might feel good for a little while. So yeah, decreasing barrier to entry would be another good way to get people involved. And then accessibility.
Yeah.
Just making sure people have access to game and stuff like that. More people are posting land.
Yeah. Especially downstate, where a generation ago, everything, even if it was a small woodlot owner down there, I mean, they left it open.
Yeah.
There was just, and then within the last 40 years or so, no trespassing signs have sprung up like weeds downstate.
Yeah. I mean, I see it around my house.
Even here, the small landowners, people,
So yeah, things are definitely changing, not for the better. We definitely don't want to see less people hunting and fishing and enjoying outdoor activities.
It's kind of...
It's easy to sit by, and I do it. It's easy to sit by and just kind of do your own thing.
Just keep doing it until they tell you can't do it.
And not getting too involved in stuff. And I should be more involved.
Yeah, and that's
the
thing that... you don't know where it's all, like I say, in my lifetime, how much things have changed. And you don't know where it's going to all shake out in another 20 years.
No, it's almost like the change has been like exponential.
Yeah, because, I mean, everything that, the media with guns and schools, the education system, I mean, there's nothing really pro-hunting or pro-guns in what children are being raised in.
No.
What they're being exposed, whether it's entertainment, media, or,
It's fine to play a video game that totally is as violent as they come.
Yeah.
But gosh, don't post a picture of a
dead
nice
deer
your kid. I had someone chastise me on one of the videos there with the kids bird hunting. How dare you bring those kids out? Loud guns, no hearing protection, no eye protection. Thinking this guy's obviously never hunted before.
Yeah.
I don't recall the last time I deer hunted with ear protection.
This guy would roll over if he ever saw how I was raised, I'll tell you that, because there were no car seats or seat belts or, we rode in the back of pickups and drank from the garden hose and...
You know what? Better yet, lock yourself in your house. Don't go outside. Don't take any risk. Nothing will happen to you.
Yeah.
And you'll be good. But no, I mean, it's like you don't hunt with hearing. You got to hear. You need your senses.
Part of the senses that you need to,
It's like,
Yeah.
All right.
And you may lose a little bit of hearing over the years.
Yeah.
You know that.
You're deafer than
I don't hear like I used to.
I have to tell the same story sometimes 2 or 3 times before I get a response.
Yeah.
But no, I guess, if anyone has any other suggestions or input, leave them in the comments below. We'd like to hear it. But it's something I think a lot about, something that concerns me, because it's a good wholesome pastime.
It is.
And it's for me, it's very therapeutic, and I try to emphasize that a lot because I think people miss that portion of it. Like, it really breaks away, especially nowadays. There's so much inundating our mind, like overstimulation to the nth degree. And even for me, I'll get out, like my first day of deer hunting, when I'm really seriously like focused and in the woods. It requires a different mental acuity. And I feel kind of like discombobulated for a few hours. Yeah. It's almost like I debug. And I feel so much better, especially a week at deer camp or up fishing. When I come home, Lacey says I'm easier to live with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So there's definitely there's a healthy component to it.
Yeah, and there's one thing that I wanted to talk about in that regard, Paul. And when I look back at my childhood, you know, your parents, like your dad, you don't spend many hours right, you know, close to them in a intimate setting or whatever. And the times that I were hunting and fishing, where we would spend long hours, where we were stuck with each other,
Yeah.
and I had his full attention.
Yep.
We may sit for 4 hours in a boat. Well, I had a ton of questions. I learned more about my dad and life
In a boat
in those 4 hours.
than sitting in the living room.
Because
at home.
right, because if we're home, he's going to be off doing something. I'm going to be off doing something.
There's other things vying for your time.
He's going to be going to work the other 5 days. He's going to come home, have supper, watch the news, and the best times that I ever spent with my father were bird hunting, or hunting in general, and fishing.
Yep.
And I learned more. We had more time together, you know, where he was focusing on me and I was focusing on him than, you know, any other time in my childhood.
And riding his boat, it was a life or death situation. It was, you may not come off the water.
We didn't know that. We were just little kids, so we trusted that your parents knew best.
Yeah.
And looking back, that may have not been the case in that situation.
Right.
Well, we made it through.
You survived.
We lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Characters built through adversity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But no, it's important. It's important for kids to have wholesome activities they can engage in.
Yeah.
And like I said, that sets that foundation of security, and then allows them to grow further on and develop into, you know, an individual that contributes to society.
Right.
So it's good for the individual, and it's good for a society as a whole. And I don't know how we don't pay attention to that.
Well,
you know?
yeah. How other people don't see things the way we see it, huh, Paul?
I mean, I should not.
Yeah.
They don't have to see it my way.
Yeah.
But how important it is. We're not just a little piece of society collectively.
Right.
You know, it's important that together we make society what it is.
Right.
And the direction we're going,
seems like it's falling apart.
it's going to disorder,
Yeah.
not order.
Yeah.
And
It seems
like
like
in science, everything goes from order to disorder unless you apply some sort of work, energy, or something to
Right.
it to get it to some cohesive state
Yeah.
that functions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
becoming more of a dysfunction.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Paul, I know I got a pretty pessimistic outlook on
I don't want to be negative. But
Yeah, I hate to be negative. I hate to, but I don't like what I see, and I don't like what's going on,
yeah.
and I don't think it's right or good.
No.
But
But it can change.
it can, yeah.
Yep.
But like I say, I only have so much of our experience, and I've seen it go from this to bad. You know,
You don't see it going the other way.
I
at
see
any,
the trend. You know, I
any
don't
point
see
in
an
time.
uptick or anything.
Yeah.
I just see a downward trend, and so yeah, I'm not saying that that can't change, but when you have a long history of, you know, and you know what things were before and what they are now, and yeah,
it's kind of scary, but
it is.
do our best to get
Yeah,
our kids
you got,
involved. And
you got 3 children, and
they love
our
the-
3 grandchildren, and we do the best with those
You know,
we can, and we do it with people we come in contact with. We try to live a life that
love talking to people up in the woods,
yeah,
out fishing and stuff like that. It's always great conversation.
yeah,
I don't know if I've ever had a bad interaction really with.
yeah, with an outdoorsman, yeah,
You know, it's always.
yeah,
I mean, there were some guys that fishing a few years ago. They were inviting us over for dinner, and
oh yeah,
you know, just
yeah.
if something were to happen,
You can count on them to
feel like
get
someone
you out of a scrape.
would
If
help
yeah,
you out.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a good community. So
yeah.
there, I think is that all we got?
Yeah.
all she wrote.
We rambled quite a bit there, Paul, so
Might be a long one, but
yeah.
And I will say, probably when this one is up, I think I'll have everything up on Spotify and some of the other platforms, Apple Podcast. I think I'm going to do that probably tonight. So by the time this one's up, I should have everything live on other platforms. See how things go.
Yep.
So I guess that just about sums it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're the boss.
I'm not the boss. She's inside. So thanks for watching. Until next time.
Get outside. It's good for the soul.
See ya.